What's happening, tubers? T.O. here, Simplistic Fishing, out here in the garage. Boat's in the shop, not much I can do. Weather's pretty crappy anyway, so I'm probably not missing that much of good fishing. But tonight, I want to talk to you guys a little bit about some baits. And I think I'll continue to do this for a couple weeks while I'm have no boat, just out here hanging out in the garage. Might as well teach you guys a little bit about some of the baits we use, some of my favorites, and some baits that you don't hear about too much. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. We're talking about the tube. So stick around, I got some good stuff for you. 4 different ways to rig this thing, as well as the different techniques to use it. Let's go. All right, before we jump into this thing, first off, let's just talk real quick about what a tube is. So a tube, really, you can get multiple varieties of tubes, lots of different colors that are out there, lots of different varieties of different tails, different tops. But essentially, a tube is just a hollow tube, just like you see here. It's just the hollow tube. And if you flip this back, you're actually going to see an opening there inside of there. And so that is completely hollow. Now, a lot of times if you get the better tubes, they're going to be a little bit harder up here towards the tip. But this is a tube, there's not much to it at all. You can see here in the picture, just pretty basic. Now, the cool thing about tubes is you've really got 2 different presentations that you can use for a tube. One could be that you're trying to mimic bait fish. So you got the white tube for that. Something that's more of shad color. You got your gray and your white gray, and your dark blacks as well, like right in there. So that's another good shad imitator. And then you have the opposite side of the scale, and that's gonna be your crawfish imitator. So that's gonna be more your darker colors, like your greens, even this one that we were using earlier, more of a crawfish imitator. The black, more of a crawfish imitator. This one can kind of go either way. This one's gray with a little bit of red and black fleck in it. So man, these things are just awesome. You can use them all over the place. So let's talk about rigging them up. All right, first off, talk about hook selections. My #1 hook selection for rigging a tube, especially if it is on a Texas rig. So if I'm rigging it up Texas rig style, I'm always going to use an EWG hook. Now, depending on my tube size, I'm either going to go with a 2-aught or a 3-aught EWG style hook. Now, you're going to have a lot of people that are going to argue with you on that and say, don't throw that EWG hook. If you're flipping, turn it over and use a flipping hook just like this. So this would be the flipping hook. Now, it's totally up to you. I think it's all preference. I honestly, I don't have a better hookup ratio either way, so I just stick with the EWG hook. I like it a little bit better too because I can bury my tube inside. So to me, that keeps it a little bit more weedless for me. But I know that there's a lot of professional anglers out there, a lot of really good anglers out there that just absolutely stand by the fact that you need to be using a flipping hook. So always keep that into consideration as you're learning, as you're learning how to bass fish. And the other thing too is if you switch over to a flipping hook, I always use a polymer knot on 99% of the stuff that I throw, except for a flipping hook. If you're going to switch over to a flipping hook, then you really need to use a different kind of knot, like a Snell knot or something like that. So look it up, do some research on YouTube about using a flipping hook and what kind of knot you need to be used, because it is a different style of knot. And that makes a huge difference in your hookup ratio. So definitely make sure to go check that out. So let's jump in and let's talk about one more hook that we're going to use, and this is what we're actually going to start with. And this is just a lead-headed hook. It's actually just called a tube jig. This is actually Trocar's tube jig right here. This one today that we're looking at right here is a 3/16 ounce, but I honestly say if you're going to use a tube in this style, which we're going to talk about in just a minute, I would stay 3/16 or smaller. I definitely wouldn't go any higher than 3/16. And then the last thing that we're going to talk about as well, another type of hook that we're going to use in one of these setups is really just a drop shot hook. Little bitty tiny drop shot hook. There's just not much to these things. That is either a 1 or a 2, very small. But anytime I'm using the drop shots, I always like to put those drop shots on a nose hook, just like that. Nose hook them in and let that bait just dangle right there. So we'll talk about that in a minute. So #1 way to rig a tube is going to be very simple. you're just going to take this tube right here. You're going to flip the little strands out of the way. And then a lot of people will say to make it easier, especially if it's a tight fit, is to just kind of get the top of that a little bit wet. And then you're just going to slide that directly into the tube. And then once you do that, it's going to look something like this. And then we're just going to flip out. We're going to press in with my finger here, and I'm going to press down right here at the same time to get that nose to come out while keeping that head up here. And you can see now I've got a really cool setup. Now these are really, really easy. Very, very basic to throw. What you're going to want to do is you're going to throw it on a spinning rod. Something pretty similar to this one right here if I don't whack myself in the head with a bunch of baits. This is a 7.3 medium light. You can also just do a medium. You could probably even do a medium heavy. It doesn't really matter. But go with spinning gear on this and go with line that's 10 pounds or lighter. So you want to stay on pretty much the light side when we're using the tube in that manner where it's basically just an open hook. Now, where are you going to throw that at? You're going to go around bridges, pillars, especially here in northern Texas. That's a dynamite way to be able to catch them. Just go around those bridge pillars and you're going to pop it up and then let it fall. Now, when these baits actually go up and they start to come back down, they literally go in a circular direction like this. And that's usually when you're going to get your bite. So you're going to throw it out, let it fall down on slack line, and just wait and see if you feel a tick there. If you don't, when you feel it hit the bottom, you're just going to reel up a little bit, pop it twice, let it fall back down, and you're just going to work it that way all the way back to the boat. That is one really good way to catch fish, and it's a really good way to catch suspended fish that are a little bit higher up in the water column. You'll get them when you pop that up and it's coming back down. That's when you'll get them, as opposed to dragging that below them. So very effective. So that is number one. Number two. Man, what are we going to talk to you about number two? So this is number one right here. I had that all rigged up. Number two is actually going to be something that I use a ton, especially in the summertime, and that is going to be your good old Texas rig. So this is just a Texas rig. You can see here, if you don't know what or not Texas rig, sorry, Carolina rig. I'm going to confuse everybody. You see here, we've got a weight right here, 3/4 ounce or 1/2 ounce weight. I put a bead. Then I put a swivel, and then pretty much I rig it Texas rig style on the back. This is a really, really, really good way to catch fish in the summertime as well. You drag it over points and humps and ledges and stuff like that. Very good way to catch fish for sure. Carolina rig is the bomb in the summertime. Now, when you're throwing that Carolina rig, you're going to go on obviously a lot heavier setup. You're probably going to go with like a 7.7 medium heavy. Fast action, something like that, something that has a little bit more backbone in it. So now we've talked about the really fish. Oh, we got one more before we switch over. The next one, number three, is going to be just the simple one we talked about earlier, and that's going to be your drop shot. So this is your drop shot right here. Very simple. You basically use that hook I talked to you about earlier. You nose hook it because you really want your bait sitting like this. You're going to nose hook it like that. Then you're going to put a little weight on the bottom, little drop shot weight. And all you're going to do with this, instead of popping it up and down, you're just going to kind of drag it across the bottom. So drag it, maybe pop it a couple times, let it go down, drag it, pop it a couple times, let it go down, just like you would a normal drop shot. The other thing you could do is just throw it out there and just kind of, every once in a while, just kind of move it just to give it a little bit of action. That when it gets really, really cold, that might be the best way to catch them. There's all kinds of different ways to do it. Now, obviously, drop shot, we're going to go back. We're going to talk about using that on the spinning reel. So let's switch over. Let's talk about how to use this tube when we're in hand-to-hand, or more like when you get up close flipping. All right, so before we jump into the more shallow version of the tube, let's go back and recap real quick what we talked about. We've got the tube head, right? Tube jig head, the weighted head. We've got the drop shot. You can use this drop shot in open water for sure. You can use that weighted head in open water as well. And then the last thing, the third way to catch them out in the open water with tubes is going to be this Carolina rig that we talked about. So the last piece that we need to talk about is really Texas rigging. You're bouncing. Texas rigging a tube. So if I have that set up on a Carolina rig, I'm going to want to Texas rig my tube. And so basically what that means is that you're going to want your tube to look something like this. This is a Texas rig tube. And then if you're flipping, obviously you want to add a weight to it. Usually add a little bead if you want. You can make it set up just like that. But let's talk about real quick. Let me take this off here. We'll talk real quick about how to rig this up. So here we go. I got a tube here. Got my EWG hook. I'm going to flip this over. I'm going to take the tube up to about, I'd say halfway up before that bend right there. So I'm aiming for like right in there. So I'm going to go right there. I'm going to go right to that spot, and then I'm going to push it all the way through my tube. So my tube's going to look like that. I'm going to push it down. I'm going to let it do its little twisting and turning, and then it's going to get more upright. And then when I do that, I'm going to be able to tell where that hook needs to come in at that tube, at what spot. So I'm going to mark that with my finger. I'm going to come back, stick that little tube in there. I'm going to push it all the way through the top piece too. And then when I do that, I've got a really nice looking Texas rig here. And notice I can move my hand across it and it doesn't even get me. And the cool thing is when that fish bites it, hits it right there, and that hook is totally exposed. So really, really cool way to use this bait. You can flip it around. Now, one thing I didn't talk to you guys about was notice how these tails are all jumbled together. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll just come in here and I'll just kind of trim them up, just like you would a jig skirt. Just kind of give them all a little bit kind of different lengths. And what that'll do is that'll spread them out and it'll keep them from getting caught on each other. To me, it just gives your bait a little bit more flair. I don't know if it does anything or not for you, but it's definitely something that I do every time. Just makes them stick out a little bit more, gives you a little bit more realistic look instead of all of them being jumbled together. So when you're flipping, it's pretty simple as well. Usually when I'm flipping, I'm gonna throw it on my money rod, and my money rod is a 7.3 medium heavy. This is my favorite all-time rod for sure. It's a Dobyns Ecstasy rod, but I also like the 7.3 medium heavy X-Pride. Pretty much all of them. 7.3 medium heavy Champion on the Dobyns side. There's Dobyns side. I love my 7.3 medium heavy Unicorn from 6 Sense. 7.3 medium heavy fast action. I think I have 3 or 4 of those rods. So that is exactly what I'm going to use for flipping a tube around. Now in this case, I've got a jig on here, but I just switch out that jig for this Texas rig, and then I would go to town. Now when it comes to using that Texas rig, you're going to want to find every laydown, every brush, piece of brush, every stick up, anything like that that you can use to throw that around. You're just going to flip it up there, let it fall down, and then you're just going to pop it a couple times, let it fall down. If you don't get a bite, reel it in, do your next flip. Throw it in there, flip it up, let it go down, flip it up, let it go down, reel it in, and just hit every piece of cover you can possibly find and get ready, because when they hammer down on that, they hammer down. Anyways, guys, I hope that helps. We went through all those different rig ups. You've got the Carolina rig, you've got the drop shot, you got the weighted head, and you've got the Texas rig. Lots of different ways to throw these tubes. Very, very effective bait. Go out and get you some this Christmas. Put it to work. It's a great winter bait as well. Till next time, hope you catch your PB, guys. Take it easy.